politics in Scotland for years. Now, under its new leader, John Swinney, it's battling to hold on to seats here in the Central Belt where Labour are hopeful of making gains. The Conservatives, they're defending seats along the border and in the North East. Their Scottish leader announced his resignation during the campaign, and the Lib Dems are focusing on some mostly rural areas. As I've crisscrossed the country, voters have been telling me they're concerned about the cost of living, the state of the public services, and the pace of the shift from oil and gas to renewable energy. There's been a row about Rishi Sunak's decision to call this election during the Scottish school holidays, with some voters disenfranchised because they haven't received their postal ballots in time. And in the background, as always, there's been the issue of the Constitution, with Brexit and independence both arousing strong emotions.
The Conservatives had their best result in decades in Wales in the last election. This time, it's a fight for survival, trying to avoid the total wipeout they experienced here in 1997 and 2001. It may not have helped to have to suspend a candidate just a couple of weeks ago because of the betting scandal. Over the campaign, Labour's had to defend its record in power in Wales at the Senedd, in particular long NHS waiting lists and the First Minister Vaughan Gething losing a vote of no confidence here. But the poll suggests they're still on course to win the lion's share of seats. Boundary changes mean there are fewer of those up for grabs, down from 40 to 32 seats this time. For small parties like Plaid Cymru, that limits their ambitions to 2, 3, maybe 4 seats. Arguably for them and Reform, this campaign has been more about wooing voters ahead of the next Senedd elections in 2026.
The possibility of a future referendum on Irish unity, the outworkings of Brexit, how Northern Ireland is funded and the instability of devolved governments have all featured heavily. And it's already school holiday time here, which may affect voter turnout. Now, there are 18 seats up for grabs. Last time, the Democratic Unionist Party took 8, Sinn Féin followed closely behind with 7, the Social Democratic and Labour Party took 2, and the Alliance Party had 1. Massive changes are not expected, but if the DUP loses any ground, it could lead to Sinn Féin, who want a united Ireland, taking the lead. They're already the biggest party at Assembly and Council level, and they will want to make it a hat-trick at Westminster. If they manage it, it will lead to inevitable debates about the constitutional future of this place. It may all come down to 1 or 2 seats, but in Northern Ireland, even small changes can shape the big picture.
Well, once all votes have been cast, the results will come through overnight tomorrow into the early hours of Friday. Our Deputy Political Editor, Vicky Young, is with me to talk us through some of the key things to look out for. Vicky.
Thank you very much, Jane. Well, this is the electoral map made up of 650 constituencies. Boundaries have altered since the last election to reflect population changes. A party needs 326 seats to win a majority in the House of Commons. Now, here's a reminder of the party leaders who fought the 2019 election. They've all been replaced, apart from Nigel Farage, who returned at the start of this campaign. And this was the result of the last election. Boris Johnson, promising to get Brexit done, won with an 80-seat majority, and Jeremy Corbyn led Labour to its worst result since 1935. The Tories made significant gains in the so-called Red Wall. These were places that in many cases had voted Labour for generations. Across a swathe of England, from Northumberland to Lancashire, through the Black Country and Lincolnshire, Labour strongholds turned blue. These are the seats that Keir Starmer is hoping to recapture. Now, in the south of England, there's a different battle. Rishi Sunak is trying to fend off the Liberal Democrats in what they've dubbed the Blue Wall, places where the Lib Dems came second to the Tories last time, a corridor stretching from southwest London through the home counties to the southwest. And what about the battle in Scotland? The SNP won 48 of the 59 seats up for grabs, making them Westminster's third largest party. Labour were reduced to just 1 seat, but are confident that they can benefit from recent SNP scandals. In Northern Ireland, 18 seats are up for grabs. The Democratic Unionist Party won the most in the last general election, but other parties are hoping to change that this time. Sinn Féin is currently the largest party at Stormont and aims to repeat that success tomorrow, although their MPs don't take up their seats in the House of Commons. In Wales, Labour lost ground to the Tories last time, but now it's Conservatives fearing losses. Meanwhile, Plaid Cymru are hoping to hold on or gain in the west and north of Wales. Now, for smaller parties like the Greens and Reform UK, it can be difficult to translate their votes into seats, but both will be hoping to have a voice in the Commons after the election. If you still have questions ahead of tomorrow's election, head to the BBC News website and app, where you'll find details of candidates in your area, guides to party manifestos, interviews with party leaders, and links to the recent debates across the BBC. Jane.
All right, thanks, Vicky. And let's just get some thoughts from Chris at Westminster. It is nearly polling day. Chris, how do you sum up where we are tonight?
Jane, this will be a landmark election. Why do I say that? Well, no party in modern times has won 5 elections in a row. That is the brutal truth that confronts Rishi Sunak tonight. And there's a brutal truth too for Keir Starmer and Labour. Labour are world beaters at losing elections. It is 19 years since they last won a general election. So something has to give. Now, the Conservatives expect to lose, Labour expect to win. One final big thought as well tonight ahead of tomorrow. Park for a moment the cynicism, the indifference, the frustration, the anger you might have, and picture in your mind a map of the world and the huge swathes of the globe where the right to choose who governs you simply doesn't exist. Tomorrow, just like in 2019, as other elections before then, via lots of individual decisions in polling stations, that decision will be taken. It's imperfect as democracy, but it can be magical. And it's over to you now to decide.
Chris, thanks so much for now. Chris Mason. Well, we turn now to the US election because the New York Times is reporting tonight that Joe Biden has told one of his allies that he's weighing up whether to continue in the race for the presidency. Mr. Biden has faced criticism of his performance in that TV debate with Donald Trump last week. Let's find out more from our North America editor, Sarah Smith. So what are you hearing tonight, Sarah?
Well, the White House are pushing back against that story, saying that the idea that Joe Biden is worried he can't salvage his chances in this race is totally false. But that is not going to quell the growing fears that there are inside the Democratic Party. There are other stories appearing, again from anonymous sources, saying that in recent meetings they've seen Joe Biden lose his train of thought and struggle to finish a sentence. Only one Democratic lawmaker has so far gone public saying that Biden should step down, but dozens more are ready to do so if in the next few days he can't convince voters that he is up to the job. Because polling suggests nearly 3/4 of people now think that he is not fit to be president. And while you've got the Biden campaign insisting that he's definitely going to carry on, the party's not been very impressed with his attempts to try and resolve the situation. He did appear on live television and give a brief statement on Monday night, and he is meeting all the Democratic governors today to try and reassure them, but many of them think that should have happened a lot earlier, and it's the same story with senior lawmakers on the Hill. He needs to recover this situation quickly. He is giving an interview to ABC television, which will air in full on Sunday, and that will be watched very closely by his party and by the electorate.
All right, Sarah, thanks for now. Sarah Smith there. It is 19 minutes past 6, our top story tonight. Before tomorrow's general election, the leaders of all the main parties have been travelling the country today, making their final appeal for votes. Still to come here tonight.
Here at Wimbledon, I have news of Emma Raducanu in the singles and intriguingly the mixed doubles. An exceptional day too for Britain's Sonny Cartel. That's all coming up.
In the Midlands at 6:30, how to fix the housing crisis. We'll look at the controversial issue of building on greenbelt land. And a catastrophic downturn in business. Traders in Leicester say profits have plummeted because of major roadworks and limited access.
Well, over the last 6 weeks, we've been hearing from BBC reporters about how the election campaign has been playing out across the UK, from Shetland to Newquay, from Dungannon to the Norfolk coast. So, for the last time in this election, let's find out the mood in two areas. Tristan Pascoe is on Portland in Dorset. And first, let's go to the West Midlands and Emma Thomas, who is in Walsall. Emma.
Well, Walsall and Bloxbridge is a brand new constituency in both name and shape. It's made up of roughly half of the former seat of Walsall North, which going into the election had a Conservative MP, and roughly half of Walsall South, which had a Labour MP. In fact, Walsall South has elected Labour MPs since the 1970s, whereas Walsall North was a fairly recent Conservative gain in 2017. This all points to it being a key Labour target. However, the recent results in May's local elections do offer some challenge to that. The Conservatives somewhat bucked the trend by keeping control of the Borough Council, and in the West Midlands mayoral elections, whilst it was the Labour candidate that won overall across the region, here in Walsall Borough it was the Conservative who got the most votes, so that may well give the Conservatives some confidence. It's also worth mentioning that Reform's mayoral candidate is now Reform's parliamentary candidate here, and she secured the third largest proportion of the votes in Walsall Borough. So if that level of support holds up, it could split the vote and have an impact, and he becomes the next MP.
Emma, thank you. Let's head to Portland in Dorset and join Tristan.
Yes, good evening from Portland. Very breezy this evening. This is the Dorset South constituency, host of the sailing events at the 2012 Olympics. For some, those games very much the high watermark of the last 14 years of Conservative government. It's also the last seat in Dorset held by Labour from 2001 to 10. Now, the Liberal Democrats recently won control of Dorset Council from the Tories at the local elections, but the seat is not a target for them, whereas Labour believe they have a real chance of winning it back. As for big issues here, well, the other side of the harbour behind me is the controversial migrant accommodation barge, the Bibby Stockholm. Some asylum seekers have described living conditions as like a prison ship. One of them, Leonard Farragut, tragically took his own life on board last year. And while many want it scrapped, Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper said just yesterday she would not end the use of the Bibby Stockholm here if Labour wins the election. Now, as for the possible impact of Reform UK here, well, we really are in uncharted waters. The party is standing in 6 of the 8 constituencies in Dorset, including here. But if, as many expect, they fracture the Tory vote, there'll be Conservatives extremely anxious about seeing what would have once been considered fairly comfortable, safe majorities disappearing almost overnight.
Tristan and Emma, thank you very much. And now to other news again tonight. A judge has ruled that there is sufficient evidence for the former leader of the Democratic Unionist Party, Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, to face trial on historical sexual offence charges. He appeared in court in Newry in County Down this morning. Sir Geoffrey now faces 18 charges involving 2 alleged victims, including rape, gross indecency and indecent assault. He appeared with his wife, who's also been charged. She faces 5 charges of aiding and abetting in connection with the alleged offences. Sir Geoffrey has said he would be strenuously contesting the charges. The daughter and son-in-law of Captain Sir Tom Moore have been banned from being charity trustees or senior managers. The regulator, the Charity Commission, took the decision after investigating the foundation they'd set up in honour of Sir Tom, who raised nearly £39 million for the NHS by walking laps of his garden during the COVID pandemic. Well, let's find out more from our correspondent, Chichi Zundu. What's been going on here? What's the Charity Commission saying, Chichi?
Well, as you said, the foundation was set up in Captain Sir Tom's name after he walked 100 laps of his garden back in 2020 during lockdown. Now, we must stress that that £39 million that he raised was managed by the NHS Charities Together and was not under investigation. He sadly passed away at the age of 100 in 2021. Then in 2022, the Charity Commission opened an inquiry into the foundation over worries about its management and its independence from Sir Tom's family. Last year, the foundation said it was going to stop asking people to donate because it wanted to ensure it cooperated fully with the ongoing inquiry with the Charity Commission. The Charity Commission today confirmed that it issued the disqualification order back in May, and that kicked in at the end of June. So it's disqualified Hannah Ingram Moore and her husband Colin Ingram for 8 to 10 years respectively, because the legal test was met for misconduct and or mismanagement. The individuals are not fit to be trustees or hold senior management functions, and disqualification is in the public interest. Now, we must stress also that the Commission's inquiry is still ongoing. In a statement, the Ingram Moore family said it fundamentally disagreed with the conclusions reached by the Commission. Despite the option to appeal, the family said they'd made the extremely difficult decision not to do so, saying the profound emotional upheaval and financial burden made such a course of action untenable. They added that they fully cooperated with the Commission at all times and had never accessed or made any payments from the charity's bank account, while independent trustees had maintained full control over the charity's finances since its inception.
All right, thank you, Chichi Izundu. The British cyclist Mark Cavendish has broken the record for stage wins at the Tour de France. The sprint specialist won stage 5 this afternoon, breaking the legendary Eddie Merckx's record. Cavendish now has 35 stage wins. Contesting what's expected to be his final tour, the 39